Hey guys, welcome in. Thanks for tuning in with us today. It's just going to be me. Golden Blue Dude may drop in. I'm not sure what he's doing today. I talked to him earlier, but we got Jeff Grimm with us. We also have Jordan. We have a couple more that may show up later on. So I'm gonna let them introduce themselves and tell them where you can find them at on all their social media platforms. Jeff, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm under Tide Guy. I do videos, try to do videos as much as I can. So please, if you haven't subscribed to me, and we'll also do some call-ins.
Yeah, Jordan.
Yeah, so you guys can find me on the College Football All Across America show on D4 Sports. Just type in the letter D, number 4, sports, exclamation point. We also do a lot of non-live content. We do top 10 lists, game previews, stuff like that. A lot more content when the season really gets rolling. So make sure you guys check that out. I'm also on Twitter at Jobo, Jobo 0209. I mainly post and tweet about Clemson, but I also comment on college football as well. So if you guys are interested in anything I have to say, then feel free to follow me on Twitter as well.
Yeah, both these guys have some awesome channels. I go to both their channels quite a bit and stuff. But yeah, check them out. Now, most of you know me. I'm Joey, and I'm the executive producer for Golden Blue Dude. I also work with Mark Rogers, several other channels. I have a new show coming out. It's not necessarily my show. I'm just the promoter and the YouTube analytic guy on it, and that's called Mountaineer Legends Pregame Show. And we'll be live Thursday from 2 to 4. So be sure and sub that up, especially if you're a Mountaineer fan, because we're going to have Major Harris, Daryl Talley, Pat-Man Jones. I mean, we've got some former greats coming in, including the host will be Dale Wolfley and Brian Joswiak. So be sure and sub that channel up. That's Mountaineer Legends Pregame Show. All right, so guys, what I thought I'd do is I'm gonna run through the scores from yesterday's games real quick, and then we'll talk about a few of them. And I'll give you what my prediction was too. So as I'm going through these, I'm gonna tell you what I predicted the score to be and how things went. So Austin Pay at Western Kentucky. I had the score Western Kentucky 38, Austin Pay 27. I'm sorry, I had the score 48-20, and the final score was 38-27. Nebraska at Northwestern. I had the final score is Nebraska 26, Northwestern 17. So I was off on that. Northwestern beat Nebraska 31-28 in an upset. Idaho State and UNLV. I had UNLV 41, Idaho State 13. Final score was UNLV 52, Idaho State 21. UConn, Utah State. I had the prediction of Utah State 47, UConn 10. The final score was Utah State 31, UConn 20. Wyoming at Illinois. I had Illinois 26, Wyoming 10. Final score was Illinois 38, Wyoming 6. Duquesne at Florida State. I had Florida State. I kind of missed off on this one. I put Florida State 27, Duquesne 7. And it was Florida State 47, Duquesne 7. Charlotte at Florida Atlantic. And I had Florida Atlantic at 30 and Charlotte at 27. And the final score was Florida Atlantic 43, Charlotte 13. Florida A&M at North Carolina. I had North Carolina at 45 and Florida A&M at 17. And the final score was North Carolina 56, Florida A&M 24. Nevada and New Mexico State. I had Nevada 37, New Mexico State 21. And the final score was Nevada 23, New Mexico State 12. North Texas at UTEP. I had North Texas at 21, UTEP at 17. Final score was North Texas 31, UTEP 13. Vanderbilt at Hawaii. I had final score Vanderbilt 45, Hawaii 21. The final score was Vanderbilt 63, Hawaii 10. So that's a rundown of those scores. And a couple of games I want to talk about. And that's the North Carolina game. Florida Atlantic, North Carolina. Let me let's see what we got here. We got Tony coming in. Let me go ahead and add him to the stream.
Hey, sorry, guys. Yeah, sorry. I had to fix a minor computer issue.
So I wanted to talk about the Florida A&M North Carolina game. Now, I had North Carolina beating Florida A&M, in which they did. But here's my concern. North Carolina allowed Florida A&M to score 24 points, and Florida A&M had 25 players missing off their team, including 7 offensive linemen. They only played the whole game with 7 offensive linemen against a Power 5 opponent in North Carolina and still scored 24 points. That concerns me with North Carolina's defense. Does that concern you guys any at all?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was a little bit disappointing because, I've talked about it in the preseason. I thought that North Carolina's defense was primed for, a lot of improvement, because they bring in Gene Chizik, who's in his second tenure as North Carolina defensive coordinator. A lot of the highly touted defensive recruits that they were able to bring in the 2020 and 2021 recruiting cycles are now, sophomores and juniors. And so, I was really expecting a huge jump forward for this North Carolina defense. And so far, it doesn't look that way. It looked like that defensive line that has loads of talent on it. He has Ray Vahasik, Miles Murphy, Travis Shaw is a highly touted true freshman. Just a lot of guys on that defense that were, big names as recruits. And it kind of felt like it was the same story as last year. The defensive line getting blown off the ball and not really getting kind of a pass rush. And that was against a very depleted, as you already mentioned, Joey, Florida A&M offensive line. So, I was impressed with them on the offensive side of the ball. I thought they looked pretty good, but it still seems like they have a lot of the same issues on the defensive side of the ball. I didn't even mention the back seven. They got burned in the secondary on some plays too. So it may take some time. I'm not completely selling my stock on the North Carolina defense, but it's clear they still have some work to do.
Yeah, they do. Tony, did you get to watch that game any?
So I have a little different view, and that comes from growing up as a kid in Big Ten country, and my dad's a football coach. And that is that in a week 0/week 1 situation against an opponent who has no chance of beating you, that game was never in question. It never was in doubt. It never was anything close. There's a couple of things that I would do as a coach that are very like Lloyd Carr, Barry Alvarez, Woody Hayes style, which is, first of all, show the rest of my opponents absolutely nothing of interest. So, it does me no good to score 70 points against Florida A&M, and they're the 3 offensive linemen who made their trip. I think it's 7, whatever it was. Just does me no good to show anything of value against that. So, I don't need to do that. The second thing is, if I'm playing a school, Florida A&M is a pretty historic HBCU. I don't need to embarrass them. The people that feel the need to really embarrass FCS schools, I don't really think that gains them anything. It's just tacky. Now, sometimes when you're Alabama and you're playing, the Little Sisters of the Poor nunnery from Birmingham, you can't help but score 70 points. So, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the teams that lay it on. The other thing is there was terrible weather in a couple of these games yesterday. And if I'm a coach in terrible weather, I'm not doing anything that is going to put my stars in jeopardy of, an extra slip on that grass and get hurt or anything like that. So I thought that North Carolina actually handled the game, got it done, won it big, and got out of there. Yeah, they scored a few points. Okay. I probably showed them nothing of interest in the packages. And quite honestly, they probably didn't even do as much scouting as you would have done normally. They probably spent time preparing for they're preparing for you in Clemson. What?
I'm sorry. I was telling you my wife's turning the air off. I'm sorry.
The one other thing that I would put in there is that with this game and with Nebraska and Northwestern, I I don't necessarily find some of the stuff worrisome, but I would call it like an eyebrow raise. So like we saw they weren't terribly impressive. I don't write them off. I don't sell the stock. I just give it an eyebrow raise, being like, okay, that was not as good as I would have thought. But if you guys have seen Michigan, when Michigan would play Western Michigan, they don't win that game 70-0. They win that game 35-14. You know, just it's a completely solid win, never in question.
My thought about it is like, okay, so my final score prediction for Florida A&M and North Carolina was North Carolina 41, Florida A&M 7. That was my score prediction. So it ended up 56-24. Here's my concern. On North Carolina, you know, their third string should be able to hold Florida A&M under 24 points.
They probably should be.
You're
probably right.
I mean, honestly, you know, so I'm that's where my concern is Florida A&M was so depleted on the offensive line with only seven offensive linemen, and you know, they had 25 players out for this game that weren't eligible to play. They had 20 ineligible and 5 injuries. So I just think that that them scoring 24 points on North Carolina is a little concerning. I'm not saying that that's going to be indicative of how this year is going to turn out, but I just think it's a little concerning that they scored 24 points on North Carolina.
Well, like I said, I agree with you totally. I would give that an eyebrow raise. But if they do fine in their next game against a better team, then I would lower my eyebrow back down.
Right, and
I just wouldn't worry about it as much as because the other thing, like I said, is if I'm those teams, I don't even like to play those games because I'm worried about injury. Like that game was in the pouring rain. Like that's just asking for like your starting linebacker to blow out a knee.
Right.
But I also think you got to worry about North Carolina the way they started off. I mean, they started off real sluggish. You're not going to be able to do that against tougher competition.
No,
they got to clean that up a little bit because they did start off. You know, the offense looked good, but the defense, I mean, it just started off really slow. And against tougher competition, you're not going to get away with that.
You're not. But then again, like that's why you play Florida A&M is so you get that kind of a scrimmage.
Yeah. And, I mean, like most college coaches, they always say that, where they see their team improve the most from a week-to-week basis is that first week to the second week. So it wouldn't surprise me if, I know North Carolina, they play App State next. It would not surprise me if they had a better performance against a considerably better, team. So
they're probably, and I admit I didn't. And to anybody who did, you're better than me. I didn't watch that game closely. I didn't break down any film of that game. I didn't even rewind plays of that game. So what you probably saw was probably no creativity in blitz package. They were probably giving App State nothing because App State is a terrifying team to play because App State can beat you.
And they have to go to App State.
Yeah, they're going to App State. And it's probably one of the biggest games in the history of Boone, it would be my guess. So right. I would bet that they were showing absolutely nothing. Because Mac Brown's an old school coach. It's very much it's very much like an Ole Miss kind of thing to think what, I'm gonna really make myself feel cool by pretending I don't have a tiny dong and beating the snot out of a convent. But to old school, and if you guys look back and look at what Lloyd Carr and Woody Hayes and Jim Tressel and those guys do to the FCS and the MAC teams. They don't feel the need to beat the living snot out of them. It's okay, let's get all our kinks out. Let's practice everything we need. Let's cycle all the different guys in. See how some different guys do relative to each other. I mean, Michigan. Have you guys heard what Michigan's doing with their quarterbacks?
Yeah.
Yep.
They're literally declaring their first 2 games to be scrimmages for our quarterbacks.
Yep.
Which also, as we saw from Hawaii, they are. It's basically a scrimmage.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about another game and talking about a team starting slow and then finishing a lot better than I thought they would. And that's Vanderbilt, 63 over Hawaii, who got 10. Hawaii jumped out really quick in this game, and they looked fantastic going down the field that first drive and getting that touchdown. And Vanderbilt looked like honestly, I was watching that game, and it looked like Vanderbilt was crap, what just happened to us? And I thought, oh, man, Hawaii's liable to beat Vanderbilt. And then Vanderbilt kind of turned it on. Did y'all take anything out of that game? I mean, I really couldn't get anything out of that game except for the first drive. And like y'all were saying, like Tony was saying a while ago, a team that starts slow like that, they might want to change that in the SEC this year. Vanderbilt might not want to start that slow against somebody else in the SEC. That's for sure.
I also think Vanderbilt like took this as an opportunity to like show off in front of the world.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
like,
they did.
I can't remember the last time Vanderbilt has beaten somebody this bad.
1941.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think Vanderbilt showed two things yesterday. One, you know, in the beginning, everybody thought Vanderbilt was Vanderbilt. You know, I mean, when Hawaii scored, it's going to be the same Vandy. But I do think that one thing you definitely learned was under Clark Lee, Vanderbilt is more aggressive. You know, they are more physical. And I don't see them, you know, going 8-4 in the SEC. That's not going to happen. But I think if they play the way they did yesterday, they have a shot at 6-6. I think they could possibly, you know, with an upset here or there, I think they might be able to make a bowl.
Yeah, and I'll tell you also, Vanderbilt, when you're the team that people score 60 points on all the time, and you have a chance to score 60 points,
You do it.
you do it. Like they could have easily won that game with like 40 points or whatever. Like they did not. Vanderbilt did not turn off. They did not pull down the guns at any point in that game.
No, they did.
They wanted that. They wanted that. They got to look great in week 0. I mean, you want that's a game. That's a game for recruiting. That's a game for the alums. I would guess probably a lot of their alumni like went to Hawaii for that game, like their big donor alumni and stuff like that. Like that was a chance to show off. And what a great day! What a great day for all Vanderbilt people.
Yes.
Now, I haven't went back and looked at all the records and this and that, but I bet there's been many years that Vanderbilt hasn't scored 63 points against the SEC in a season. You know? So,
A lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they looked good. And you know what? Good on them. I worry a little bit. Like, is Hawaii that bad? We're gonna find out when Hawaii plays Michigan, but like
They might be.
they might be atrocious.
I feel bad for Timmy Chang because he's taken over a dumpster fire. They were decimated by the transfer portal. Their last coaching staff, it just was not they were not in a very good place. And
I mean, they're playing at a middle school field with food trucks.
Right.
and didn't most of their coaching staff just leave in like December and January? So I mean, they are a dumpster fire. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, we may see that they may not Vandy. But I don't know if we learned anything from that game other than like, oh, Vandy, like give them a hug.
Yeah.
They looked
You did
great.
good, Vandy.
All the fans on national TV. And I like that for them because I know so many awesome people that went to Vanderbilt. Like they deserve to go to Hawaii and have a great time.
Yeah.
So another game. So on the flip side of the coin is Florida State back. Now here's what I'm proud of. I said I predicted final score of Florida State 47, Duquesne 10. That was my prediction, 47-10. Final score was 47-7. So that was pretty good pick on my part. But can we judge Florida State at all from a Duquesne win?
No, but it does. I don't know. It's a good. I'd say it's a good. They did what they were supposed to, and I think that's a good sign. They didn't do that at times last year, and year one under Norvell back in 2020 either. And they played a lot of different guys. They showed a lot of different formations. They basically. I'm sure Brian Kelly's looking at the film and is like, I have no idea what exactly they're going to do against me next week, which is exactly what they want. But I think Florida State, they did a lot of good things. They played good defense. They ran the ball extremely well. That running back trio that they have looks pretty good. I know it's Duquesne, but I think they've done a good job of overhauling that roster. I think the offensive line it looks to be deeper than it's been in quite some time. They actually have some bodies that can move and move bodies and push people around. So that's a good sign. I thought Jordan Travis threw the ball pretty well when he did throw it. And all in all, I think Florida State took care of business, and I don't think they showed too much on film that'll give a tip to LSU. But it's a good win, and it's definitely better than losing to Jacksonville State.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I mean they didn't do anything interesting. I mean they were, but yeah, they were playing in a monsoon,
Yeah.
The game rain delayed for an hour and a half or whatever. But they didn't do anything, but they did exactly what they were supposed to. It's kind of the opposite of, we say a couple of these teams like, okay, we're not worried, but we raise an eyebrow. We don't raise any eyebrows at Florida State. They just, like Jordan said, they did exactly what they were supposed to.
See, and I took 3 things away from that game. 1, I think the run game will be pretty good this year. I think that's going to happen. 2, the quarterback played really well. But the problem I have is if that quarterback gets hurt, you saw that backup come in and threw that pick. He struggled in, camp. So if they lose their quarterback, does that mean Florida State's just going to go completely down? And that would be worrisome to me. I don't know how you guys feel.
It's hard to pick quarterback in that kind of nasty rain.
Yeah.
True.
Too, which is probably why they ran the ball so much.
Yeah.
They don't have that problem in the Mercedes Superdome or the Caesars, whatever it is now.
Yeah. But yeah, I do. The quarterback, situation is a little concerning because, just the stuff I've read and heard about out of camp. Jordan Travis is the clear QB1, and then Tate Rodemaker and AJ Duffy. They're just they're still developing. I don't know if they're quite ready to start. If they had to come in an important game, I don't know if they're ready yet. And both were pretty highly rated quarterbacks out of high school, but some quarterbacks just need time, and I don't think they're quite there yet. So it's that is something to keep an eye on, Jordan Travis's health, because that's something that has kind of hindered him, before in his career, injuries and stuff like that kind of kept him from securing that QB1 spot. So yeah, that's something to watch moving forward. But everything else, the running backs I think look good. The offensive line is definitely improving. The wide receivers it was kind of a mixed bag, but I thought I think that position is in a better spot than they were last year, at least. So, which is not saying much because their wide receiver room these last few years has been pretty awful. But I think this Florida State team is a team to watch moving forward. I'm a little high on them. So, but again, it's Duquesne. We'll see what they look like next week.
Jimmy Touchdown, thank you for the $2 super chat. He says final score Pitt 66, WVU 3. No comment. No comment. I don't think it would be that bad. Never mind. It could never be that bad. So
it's not gonna be that bad. I mean, remember.
Okay.
Remember,
so
WVU took USC's 5-star quarterback. Pitt only has USC's 4-star quarterback. So.
Yeah, that's true.
That's right.
That's true.
That's true. All right, so let's talk about the game of the day. The game that's probably going to cost the job at some point in the season. Nebraska and Northwestern. Now, my final score prediction was 26-17, Nebraska. And, of course, they didn't get their ass handed to them, but they lost 31-28 to Northwestern. All right, so how hot did Scott Frost's feet get there?
It's pretty.
I think he's done.
3rd-degree burns.
Yeah.
But not unsalvageable.
No.
The hard thing about Northwestern is Northwestern, and it's an even year, as you always hear. Northwestern could be good. So, like, if I'm Nebraska, I'm not doing anything irreversible. I'm probably making plans as if I need to replace him, because you replaced everything else. If you guys haven't seen, by the way, Andy Staples' emergency podcast on this yesterday with Ari Wasserman and Max Olson was hysterical. And you should absolutely watch it. If you didn't see it, Jordan,
yeah, I did.
it's amazing. Yeah. It's a riot, and I doubled down on those guys 100%. But I think that this is another one of those things that you just have to say, okay, let's have a moment of pause and be like, Nebraska, these could both be 9-win teams.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Jimmy Touchdown.
But it could be.
Jimmy Touchdown, thank you for the $5 super chat. He says, hotter seat, Scott Frost or Neil Brown after a Pitt loss on Thursday? I'll answer that real quick. It's Scott Frost because Neil Brown's got a $20 million buyout, so that ain't happening. Jeff, you want to tell him about
Scott Frost has to beat Oklahoma now.
He does.
Yeah, see, on Scott Frost right now, it's $15 million buyout, where October 1st it becomes 7.5. And the biggest problem now with coaching is, everybody says, well, you can wait till the end of the year. But the problem is they got a signing in December. So that's why coaches are getting fired earlier now. And I think if Scott Frost loses, if they lose to Oklahoma in a bad way, I think the 1st of October, you're going to see Frost out so they can, name the next coach. So that way they have the guy ready to do recruiting. But I think the biggest problem at Nebraska right now, and you wouldn't say this years ago, are those lines. Who's ever saw a Nebraska defensive line get pushed around like that?
By Northwestern.
Yeah, by Northwestern.
Now, let me go to that. Let me point to that for a second, because I don't think Northwestern. I know Tony said this is one of them years Northwestern could be good. I don't think Northwestern's that good. As if anybody watched that game, Northwestern
could be
right.
Yeah.
Northwestern wasn't setting the world on fire, and Pat Fitzgerald did not call a very good game, if you ask me, because in the first quarter alone they had a 3rd and 10, a 3rd and 14, and a 3rd and 7, and he ran the ball every time. He ran the ball 10 straight times in the first quarter at one point. That's ridiculous. And I realized they were pushing the line around, and you want to establish that run, but he never did establish the pass after that run, if you ask me. He ran the ball the whole game, and it just wasn't a very good game plan. Nebraska should have beat Northwestern pretty easily. So that tells me that Nebraska may be worse than last year.
It might be. This is another one of those. I don't know, because it's a legit team in Northwestern. That is a team that is always a roll the dice. When you play Northwestern and Purdue and Iowa are just those Big Ten teams where like anything can happen.
Yeah.
And so I look at it and I'm like, wow, this is like, let's prepare for panic. We're not panicking, but we're just preparing for panic, because it certainly did not show anything good for Nebraska.
No.
But think about this, Tony. And I know every team is different, but when you beat a team 56-7 one year and the next year you lose, I don't care how much better that team is, you went from a 49-point win to a 3-point loss.
And not only do you lose, but you lose in front of the entire college football world in Ireland, of all places, in this whole big thing that everyone's watching. How many of those fans spent? I mean, let's call it. I don't know what you probably had to spend $2,000 a person, $3,000 a person to travel there. You stayed for a week. You did all the things. You went to the game. So these fans and there were tens of thousands of them who shelled out, $3-4 grand a person or whatever to go to this game. They are ticked. The pressure and the fire of the blowtorch on those players and on those coaches is itself decimating. Not even the game realities. Just, you want to talk about the seat. That seat is lit by 30,000 blowtorches of people who just blew $4 grand to lose to Northwestern in Ireland.
And those people that blew $4 grand would maybe donate $4 grand to the university to get rid of him. So, all right. So, Jimmy Touchdown. Once again, thank you for the $2 super chat. Neil Brown is fired before Scott Frost.
Did Judicial Protest just get a new YouTube login?
That's his little brother.
It's got to be.
I think it must be. But the other thing, by the way, just a little side note. So I'm like a huge stadium dork, and I love amazing stadiums. I was a little bummed they didn't show as many cool views, but Aviva Stadium where they had that game is awesome. That place is so cool.
Yeah, it was. It was nice.
But here's a question for Nebraska. I mean, after the game yesterday, does anybody give Nebraska a chance at Oklahoma, Michigan, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin? I mean, there's 5 games right there that,
I don't, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
I put Nebraska as we said North Carolina gets an eyebrow up. Nebraska gets 2 eyes looking down over the glasses, grandpa style,
right.
What? But then again, they can. If they show up, and even if they play Oklahoma real close, you kind of be like, okay, this is where we need to be. But the other thing is, this is year 5 for Scott Frost. Like,
Yeah.
It's not just like Scott Frost has to like Mike Norvell, I think, needs to salvage the wreckage of last year. Like, Scott Frost is supposed to be looking okay.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if they're going to do that. Like, I don't know. Even if he finishes okay, I don't know that they don't make a change.
But Bo Pelini couldn't last, 9-3?
Nope.
That was a different era of Nebraska. Nebraska's now learning. Don't you wish? Be careful what you wish for. It just might come true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jordan, did you have some thoughts on Scott? Is he done quickly, or?
It's getting there. I mean, like Tony said, it's not unsalvageable. It's going to take a lot. I think you do have to. You got to beat somebody big. That Oklahoma game is looming large right now. You got to win one of those games. You can't afford to. I mean, you're 5-21 in one score games at Nebraska. That is a pretty. I don't think I've ever seen that before. From a head coach like that's been at a program that long. That's pretty rough. I'm kind of out on Nebraska, but I'm not like completely, burying them. Like I'm not going to be propping them up moving forward, and unless I see something different. But it's the Scott Frost era is on life support right now. They're going to need some miracles. They're going to need some holy water. Maybe they might need Jesus himself to come back. I don't know. But it's going to be interesting to watch. I'm interested to see how this team responds to that. Do they continue to rally around Scott Frost? Because I mean, they play hard for him, and they go to bat for him. But I'm interested to see what the response is and kind of how the team rallies. Because they're not only being scrutinized by their fans, but by media, the college football world in general, and that's a lot to put on. That's a lot to put on, 18, 19, 20, 21, in some cases as old as like 24-year-old, adults, but still kids in a way. It's a lot. So I'm really interested to see how this team responds.
And I think that the setting that they did it in just took it and made it exponentially worse because they did it literally as the flagship game that the entire world was watching. Like Nebraska Northwestern on a normal Saturday night, nobody's paying any attention whatsoever. I mean, yeah, you'd watch the highlights and you'd be like, oh, wow, that sucks. But like everybody saw this, which doesn't make it better. But I'll tell you one other thing it really scares me for. This is a little off topic, but terrifies me just a little bit, is that there are 2 teams that did what Nebraska did, which is completely replace your coach and then take everyone from the transfer portal and try to rebuild a Frankenstein team from the transfer portal.
Yep.
And we saw yesterday it did not particularly work for Nebraska. So I'm praying to God that Lincoln Riley did a better job of it.
All right. Thank you for the $5 super chat, Vanity Bros. And they say it was smart to run the ball. Remember, it was reported that Nebraska's linemen had been throwing up 12 times a day at practice from working so hard. And I do remember that. It was reported that they were throwing up at stuff. So. And then we have a super chat. Oh, from the uncle.
And I was also, I mean, the other thing is Nebraska's running backs did a lot, but they did a lot after contact.
Northwestern?
Which doesn't say much. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting.
But I think the other thing we're overlooking is Nebraska probably won the game if they wouldn't have onside kicked it.
Do you think so?
Yeah, that's a big thing. Yeah. They had the momentum. That was stupid. That was stupid. They had the momentum. They were up by 11 points, and they do an onside kick. That's the dumbest thing in the world you could ever do. And it reminded me. I think back to I think it was 2006 Sugar Bowl, West Virginia and Georgia, and West Virginia did an onside kick. They were winning the game. West Virginia did an onside kick, but recovered it and sealed the game. So, it's kind of like one of the things. I think he was trying to steal possession, so I can understand the call, but having the momentum up by 11, it kind of reversed everything.
The only thing that I would love to know, and I don't know how I could ever find this out, is I think they had something on film or something from like all the rest of the first half, that I think there was something in there that they really thought they were going to get it for some reason, and something went wrong.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know
the
whether
kicker kicking it to a running back. That was the problem. I think he needed to kick it further outside.
Yeah, that could have been like they knew that if they got it to like this section of the field, oh my God, they would have totally gotten it, and then the kid just like shanked it off to this, like a little bit closer to the running back. So there's probably something on film that, because I didn't watch film of Northwestern and I wasn't paying that much attention to their special teams, in the first half of the game.
Right.
So my guess would be that there's, and of course the coaches aren't going to tell you what it was, but I would guess that there was something on film that like they're just like kicking themselves because it strategic, in sort of like, would you do this theoretically? Absolutely boneheaded, stupid, idiotic move, unless there was that thing. Like, and I'm making it up, right? Like maybe the two kids they were trying to kick it to, the minute they like crunch back, those guys were running back early to get into defensive formation, something like that. Who knows what it was? But I think that there was something on film that made them do that. Except the problem with making that call is that it makes you a hero or a goat.
Yeah.
There's a fake punt my dad ran, actually famously won him a city championship and took him to playoff games. My dad was a football coach, and the funniest thing in the world, he called this fake punt, and you could hear the other coaches in the press box in the video going, "Oh my God, no." And on the sideline, you watch all the other coaches start walking away from him and the players. He's the head coach. He's literally standing there like by himself. You hear the coaches go like, no. And they hike the ball to the kid, and all of a sudden you hear, yes. And he goes like 83 yards down the sideline for a touchdown.
Wow.
So
there were three things that I saw in this game, guys. The onside kick definitely swung the momentum, like without a doubt. I wouldn't say that in and of itself cost them the game, but it definitely affected the game. Second thing was Nebraska doesn't know how to tackle. I don't know what they were practicing in the offseason, but if you watched the game, you saw that their defensive line got tremendous pressure, not only on the quarterback, but on the running back as well. They were getting pressure. They should have had several sacks and several more tackles for losses because they were getting penetration, but they couldn't take them down. Northwestern, I'd have to go back and do some research. I don't know how many yards they got after contact or after the test. It was a lot. Most of the yards were after contact. That was insane. And the third thing is Nebraska has to be more consistent with the running game. I know their running back went over 100 yards, but it was because of like 3 or 4 plays, something like that. They weren't consistent running the ball. And before that onside kick, if you notice, this goes back to me talking about how it affected the game. Casey Thompson was actually slinging the ball really well. Like he was seeing the field, he was seeing the field clearly. His timing was almost perfect. And for whatever reason, all of that went out the window after the onside kick. It was like it killed everybody's momentum. And the reason it was especially detrimental to Nebraska is last year they were fourth worst in starting field position, starting at their own 26. And up to that point, it was even worse in this game, starting at their own 14. Well, by onside kicking the ball and Northwestern recovering, you literally flip the field on yourself. Like that, Northwestern didn't have to drive the ball any. The field was immediately flipped on Nebraska. So even if Northwestern wouldn't have scored on that drive, which they did immediately, Nebraska would have had terrible field position because they flipped the field on themselves. It was one of the all-time biggest bonehead calls I've ever seen in my entire life in college football. And I went back and did the research on the percentage as far as chances of recovering onside kick. It's between it depends on what years you research, but
it's pretty pathetic.
It's pretty much between 20% and 25%. It's not good at all. The only time anybody needs to try an onside kick is at the end of the game. Number one, you're down by 1 possession. You have no timeouts, and you don't have the time to get a 3-and-out. Must kick an onside kick. Number 2, it's the end of the game. You have the lead, and you know you're not going to stop them. Hey, let's try to steal a position or possession. And even with West Virginia, even though it wasn't an onside kick, it was a fake punt. And at that point in time in the game, Georgia had the momentum. Rich Rod felt like we would not have been able to stop them. So he wanted to steal that possession. Worst case scenario, you do give them good field position, but you didn't trust your defense at that point in time. Anyways, it was a horrible call. It was horrible timing, and it cost Nebraska the game. Not just that play, but the momentum and all that stuff may have cost Scott Frost his job and Nebraska's entire season. That one play, man, it was bad. Before I get out of here, side note, I don't know if you've already talked about this. West Virginia has named JT Daniels starting quarterback. I don't know if that's going to affect the Vegas line. I don't know if they were already factoring that in whenever they put out the line. So I'm going to keep my eyes on the Vegas line from now up
They
until
did announce that.
So we'll see. But yes, he is officially the starting quarterback at West Virginia.
Because I figured it was neck and neck. I figured it was neck and neck between him and Joey.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know if they might do a Michigan thing and be like, all right, we're going to start Joey Foster in this game and then JT Daniels in this game.
Could you imagine?
And here's another
Joey Foster
thing that I saw in a Neil Brown interview that was very, very encouraging. Not just that JT Daniels won the starting quarterback position, but he's very encouraged at how much he's taken Nico Markell under his wing. So JT Daniels recognizes that Nico is the future of West Virginia, and he's literally taking him under his wing. Neil Brown has said, this guy's the most knowledgeable quarterback that he's ever seen in his entire life. Tony, I've asked you, I've asked Tim, I've asked as many USC fans, no dog in the fight, straight up, who would you prefer at the starting quarterback, Keaton Slovis or JT Daniels? And overwhelmingly, without a doubt, JT Daniels has always been the answer.
Yeah,
guys, I got to do more shopping. Great show.
But GBD, I'll tell you, you're right. I mean, JT Daniels would have started for Georgia if he hadn't gotten hurt. He won the starting job at Georgia twice.
Well, what makes me laugh is Georgia fans, all of a sudden JT Daniels at West Virginia, and he's an average quarterback. Those are the same Georgia fans that got absolutely furious with Kirby Smart last year whenever JT Daniels got healthy and he started Stetson Bennett.
2 years.
Stetson Bennett. They were mad at him because JT Daniels got healthy and Kirby stuck with his loyalty and Stetson Bennett. Yes, it paid off because they had a historic defense, but just because he's a starting quarterback at West Virginia doesn't make him automatically average. That's just stupid. Come on.
Yeah, Jordan. Yeah, I do feel a little bit like Jordan or I could have quarterbacked that Georgia team.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think Georgia still wins the SEC East, but they're going to be way more 50-50 games. I have them at 10-2.
I'm getting real behind on super chats, guys. Let me get these in here.
All right,
Says, Neil Brown.
Good to see you.
Thanks for coming in, man. Thanks for